Hello Switch fans and welcome to Common of Year's Gamecast. I'll be your host, KG, and today we have yet another game from the latest Balance Beta patch for Common of Heroes. However, this time the map is a surprise. It's not Langa, it's not Angeville, it's not Samoa. It's the new redesigned Sturzdorf. Yep, that's right. We get a glimpse at this new resource layout on a map that actually heavily favored the North player munitions-wise, and usually that meant that the South player had it a bit rough, unless of course he massively outplayed his opponent. In any case, the players involved in this particular game will be Lieutenant Rhodes or IronWings on GameReplays.org against Purlictor, playing as the US and the Wehrmacht respectively. So without further ado, let's go into the game. We are paused at the 5-second mark. We'll be unpausing in 3, 2, 1, go. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So, what changed in the map? So, I'll just go through it from north to south. The northwest resource point has been replaced and is now, instead of a high munition point that was literally unable to be harassed, is a low fuel point. That particular munition point has been moved to the northeast of the map. The nearby strategic sector, right to the south of the high muni point, is not a medium munition point anymore. It's just a strategic sector, and that of course means that the whole munition income situation for the top player has been completely turned around. Going a little bit more to the south, we see that there a low munition point right to the north of the central victory point that was previously a strategic sector, so that of course means balances out the reduction of the munition income for the north player and makes it so that even if you get that point, you will eventually be harassed at some point or another. Moving more to the south, we witness that the westmost fuel point next to the west victory point has been moved to the south a bit, making it a little bit safer for the south player to hold on. And then just right outside to the northeast of the south player's base, we see a medium munition point instead of a strategic sector there. And all that of course balances out the munition income for either of those players, and makes it so that you have an even playing field resource-wise upon which to build your strategies, and not being shelled down with artillery or with a strafe in the first 10 minutes of the game because of that massive munition income that the North player had. So let's go into the game and talk about the openings that are pretty standard for the American player that seems to have 2 rifles present in the field right now, along with his 2 engineers. However, the Wehrmacht player opted for a sniper first to bike or motorcycle, which still is a kind of a weird thing to do, although that particular sniper will put the pressure onto the American player's manpower rather early. So maybe he was thinking, well, I get a sniper first, so I get my 14 kills or something like that for the sniper to pay off rather early, and I put that pressure on the American player. I kind of force him to either get a jeep and try to hunt down my sniper, or to get a counter sniper of his own. So I mess a little bit with his head at this early moments of the game. He follows that up of course with a motorcycle, as I said, and an MG42, and he seems to be making a move for the east portion of the map, which is actually a very solid move to do, since that particular east portion of the map holds that high fuel point, the only high fuel point on this map. And usually whoever player actually controls that particular high fuel point is in a situation to tech up rather quickly. However, the micro on that sniper was a bit sloppy by the Wehrmacht player. That sniper had to actually retreat under the fire of 2 rifleman squads. However, his MG42 is able to suppress one of them. His bike actually scouts for the MG42 and the MG42 repositions, so those riflemen, although they might have been thinking that they will actually be out of range of the MG42, it's not gonna happen. So retreat there as well. So the Wehrmacht player actually utilized his initial forces rather well. He forced a retreat on not 1 but 2 rifleman squads, and he managed to save his sniper. So that's all good for him. And he even gets a second sniper out, which is rather weird. But there was a mine already laid down by the American player to that ramp leading to the east victory point, and that resulted in the bike being destroyed. It's not a heavy loss. Losing the bike with his 180 manpower cost is not going to be game altering. However, your MG might be in a bit of a pickle trying to figure out where the riflemen are coming from with his, low sight range and all that good stuff. You may be vulnerable to a counter snipe that you would have otherwise spotted having this bike around. But, the Wehrmacht player, as you see here, immediately replenishes the bike, so he'll be good for now. He even utilizes his MG42 to cap the strategic sector to the east, which may seem weird at first, but there was no immediate threat around, and that enabled him to cut the American player off the high fuel point there. Although that thing that he's trying to do now, capping the high fuel point with his MG42 as well, I'm not sure about that. In any case, that gave, of course, the American player all the time he needed to move to the westmost portion of the map and take control of it almost entirely. We even have bars kicking in for the American player, and one of his rifleman squad retreating. However, there are 2 rifleman squads approaching from the north, and the MG42 needs to come and help. By the way, I failed to mention there's a Volksgrenadier squad in the building to the south of the Wehrmacht player's base, and that must have been an oversight, and I'm not certain whether the Wehrmacht player will actually spot that and try to get them out and into the action, because it's pretty important. A Volks in a building that doesn't actually matter is gonna be a pain. And now the Wehrmacht player realizes, get the Volks out of the building and tries to move them to the south. I can tell you now, he's gonna be mad about those Volks being there for that much of a period during these early moments of the game. Early moments that of course correspond to the 7 minutes, 17, 18, 19, 20 second mark. And bars, of course, by the American player prompted the Wehrmacht player into a heavier tier 1 play. And by heavier, I mean that he has even another MG42 on the field now. So 2 MG42s, 2 sniper, 1 Volks, 1 motorcycle against 4 barred riflemen and 2 engineers. Now, this is a kind of a solid response. By the way, we witnessed some mines going down by the American engineers right outside of the Wehrmacht player's base. That I was saying that getting a heavier tier 1 against an American player that has gone for bars is actually a solid thing to do. You can either do that or try to tech up and exploit the fact that you won't be seeing any vehicles anytime soon by the American player, since he has invested fuel in those bars, and try to get an armored vehicle of your own out. And usually against bars, you would like to go for a Sturm Armory and a Puma. But the heavier tier 1 works as well. Having those 2 MG42s covering each other or just helping you out with the suppressive fire and taking shots on the American infantry with your snipers is all important. And as we saw here, the American player had to be had no other choice but to retreat with all 3 of his rifleman squads. The manpower drained by those 2 snipers that have 7 and 13 kills is quite significant. So going back to the American player's base, we even see that he, despite the fact that he even got his bars up, he had the fuel income that actually enabled him to get a mortar lap and an M8. He doesn't have a trial center, of course, because that's another 20 fuel invested there. So that may play a bit of a rather tip the scale a little bit on his manpower drain a little bit more. But still, that M8, for the time being, does not really have a counter on the field. And a single full squad trying to fast it is not really going to work that well. I'm looking around for Wehrmacht mines, and I see some. I see some by the road to the southeast of the central victory point. So yeah, the Wehrmacht player may be able to lure the American M8 into some of those mines, provided he plays his cards really well. But for the time being, he will rather have to be a bit more defensive, to be quick on his retreats when his infantry squads are in danger, or even get stormtroopers up, because that's what you do if you see an M8 and you don't really have any tier 2 up to get packs or any Sturmarmory up to get Pumas with Upgun or Stugs. You just get stormtroopers from your Doctrillion ability 3 of the Blitzkried, of course. So those stormtroopers will most probably soon be upgraded with some Shreks, and we just see it here. However, the Wehrmacht player actually reveals his stormtroopers that were firing on some American engineers, and I'm not so certain how that's gonna play out for him, since now the American player knows exactly what is going on in the Wehrmacht camp and what the Wehrmacht player opted for in order to fight off his M8. In an unfortunate turn of events for the Wehrmacht player, the mine was actually hit by riflemen and not the M8, so that M8 is going to be in a very good standing for the time being. Sniper, taking a rather risky shot at the retreating rifleman squad, actually dies to the fire of the M8, and that's something that you do not really want to see happen. However, you could argue that the snipers paid off for themselves, having all those caused all those casualties on the members of the rifleman squads. So yeah, well, it may be a loss that you have to deal with, but at least he had some kills. It was not like walking into the field and getting, getting killed by the M8 without having caused anything significant in the game. No further taking back in the Wehrmacht player's base, so I'm a bit of a I'm thinking you should get up some more tech. You should get some vehicles of your own, because the stormtroopers are fine. They're cloaked, they can run around, they can maybe take some shots on the rear armor of the M8 and kill it, but you still have barred riflemen lurking around in the field. And storms with Shreks especially, that are meant to be, of course, your answer to an armor vehicle by the American player, are not going to be able to fight off the American player's barred rifleman. So you need to keep that in mind. But never mind, the Wehrmacht player had all the fuel income that he needed. He has been in control of that high fuel point to the east for quite a while, and he just started building his tier 4